right, we're back with Sean Diddy Combs. Is it Diddy today? Because sometimes you're Puffy and sometimes you're Diddy. Or sometimes you're Daddy. What are you today?
I'm so confused today with it, as long as you say it in a nice way.
All right. So tell me about your birthday party. Am I invited?
Yes, you're definitely invited. I invite you to all my parties, you just haven't seemed to show up today.
No, well, is it on the East Coast?
Yes.
Well, that's why. Why don't you have one here on the West Coast? Because I work all the time.
Okay, well, maybe I have one at your house.
Where's
It was bound to happen sooner or later. Ellen DeGeneres, aka the Queen of Mean, getting caught up in the whole Diddy drama. Paparazzi recently snagged a moment with Ellen to chat about her old pal Diddy, who's facing some heavy accusations right now.
Ellen, were you surprised by the allegations about P. Diddy? Did that surprise you about P. Diddy?
Ellen,
He's been on your show many times.
have a good night.
Have you been to his parties?
Ellen seemed pretty shaken up when the reporters brought up those wild parties Diddy is known for. Diddy used to pop up a lot on The Ellen Show, and now with all these party allegations surfacing, fans are diving back into his past interviews. In several of them, Diddy talks about his legendary baches and even jokingly called out Ellen for always turning down his invites. But get this, rumor has it that Ellen did hit up a few of Diddy's gatherings. Not the flashy, high-profile ones we all hear about, but more low-key, secretive ones at his place where some sketchy stuff supposedly went down. Meanwhile, some creepy old footage popped up online showing Ellen making Justin Bieber squirm by asking him some really awkward questions. With whispers that Justin might have been messed up by Diddy and some other big names in the industry, folks are now wondering if Ellen had any idea what was going on with him. So, what's the real scoop on Ellen and Diddy's friendship? Did Ellen really show up at those wild parties everyone's whispering about? And could she end up in the middle of the ongoing Fed investigation into Diddy? First off, why are people saying Ellen DeGeneres and Diddy are more alike than you'd think? To be clear, Ellen hasn't been hit with any serious criminal charges like Diddy, but she's definitely got a rep for being Hollywood's meanest lady, and some of the stories floating around about her are seriously creepy. Both Diddy and Ellen have shown the world a side of themselves that's way different from who they really are, and now it looks like their facade is starting to crumble, giving us a peek at who they really are. Ellen started out doing stand-up in small spots around New Orleans and quickly made a name for herself, touring the country. Her first big TV gig was a brief sitcom called Open House. It didn't last, but it led to another role in These Friends of Mine, which eventually became the show Ellen. Ellen really shook things up in April 1997 when she came out on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and her sitcom character did the same soon after in a famous episode that tackled LGBTQ+ issues. After her sitcom wrapped up, Ellen did some more stand-up, then landed a new sitcom, The Ellen Show, in 2001, and not long after, launched her hugely popular daytime talk show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show. But here's where things get juicy. Despite her image as the lovable, goofy host who's all about dancing and giveaways, there were signs that not everything was as sunny as it seemed. In 2007, a former writer from her sitcom dished out how tough Ellen was behind the scenes, critiquing their work harshly away from the public eye, even while keeping up her charming persona in rehearsals. This kind of talk kept popping up over the years, but Ellen managed to keep it mostly under wraps. That is, until 2016, when Kathy Griffin let loose in her memoir about a run-in with a beloved daytime talk show host who fits Ellen's description. Griffin later confirmed it was indeed Ellen she was talking about, showing a side of her that wasn't so friendly after all.
Kathy versus Ellen, round two. It began in Kathy Griffin's book. It was a blind item about a certain beloved daytime talk show host who has short blonde hair. Then in an Access interview, Kathy revealed who that was, Ellen DeGeneres, and how Ellen has not been supportive to her, Liz.
Well, Ellen heard about that interview and she did not like what she heard.
Fast forward a few years, and you've got more celebs opening up about how Ellen wasn't exactly the nicest person around. Clips of her being kind of harsh and making famous folks squirm started popping up all over social media. Take, for example, that super awkward interview with Mariah Carey back in 2008. At that time, there were rumors Mariah might be pregnant, but she hadn't said anything publicly.
Go ahead. Okay, cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
It's too early for me. Yeah. I only drink after 3 p.m.
Yeah. You're pregnant.
on the
No.
computer like, what are you talking about? No, we won't let you know when we're going to have a
No,
family.
you won't.
Despite Mariah obviously not wanting to talk about it, Ellen kept pushing her to spill the beans. She even tried to get Mariah to drink champagne on the show to prove she wasn't pregnant. Fast forward to 2020, and Mariah told Vulture that she was super uncomfortable during that interview, especially since she had recently had a miscarriage. She wished Ellen had been more understanding. Then there's Wendy Williams, who's had her own beef with both Diddy and Ellen. Rumor has it, Diddy got Wendy kicked off her radio show in the 90s after she hinted he might be hiding something big. As for Ellen, she was pretty cold to Wendy when she appeared on her show. Throughout the whole interview, Ellen seemed totally uninterested, barely showing any excitement about Wendy's show getting renewed. It just goes to show, the drama's always simmering just below the surface in celeb land. We also gotta talk about Dakota Johnson and that legendary time she turned the tables on Ellen, exposing her on her own show. You know how Ellen sometimes makes stuff up for a laugh and most celebs just play along? Well, Dakota isn't most celebs. When she popped into The Ellen Show in December 2019 to talk about her 30th birthday bash, Ellen tried to joke about not being invited. But Dakota wasn't having it and called Ellen out right there for lying. Ellen was clearly uncomfortable, trying to change the subject, but Dakota stood her ground. She even proved her point by saying that Ellen's own team knew about the invite. And to twist the knife a bit, Dakota mentioned she has another favorite comedian anyway. This whole thing is a classic case of what happens when you try to call out a narcissist. Speaking of similar vibes, Diddy had a moment just like that on Jimmy Kimmel's show. It felt like watching a replay of the Dakota-Ellen showdown. Diddy was on the show just before Cassie dropped her big lawsuit. When Jimmy mentioned Diddy's former bodyguard and the wild stuff he'd said about him, you could practically see Diddy's smooth facade crack right there on live TV. Now, let's dive into how these two have been treating their staff, because both Diddy and Ellen have been hit with some pretty serious allegations. Starting with Diddy, the guy has had a bunch of ugly lawsuits thrown at him. Remember the chef, Cindy Rueda? She worked her tail off from early morning till past midnight without extra pay. But that's not the worst part. She claimed Diddy made her serve food right after he'd been, intimate, sometimes even while he was stark naked. She even said Diddy would ask her if she liked his body while she was serving him. It gets creepier. One of Diddy's buddies allegedly walked into the kitchen in the nude and asked her to admire him. When Cindy complained, Diddy's team tricked her into a theft accusation by planting a watch supposedly thrown away. Then they threatened her with prosecution unless she returned the watch and waived all her rights to sue. Now, switching to Ellen, you've probably heard she's not exactly the nicest boss either. Her reputation took such a hit that it's part of why her talk show got canned. She was reportedly a nightmare at home and at work. A former housekeeper told the Daily Mail that Ellen was like a drill sergeant, freaking out over tiny mistakes, and seemed to enjoy firing people. Ellen was so obsessive that she'd set up little traps around her house to check if her staff was cleaning every corner. She was tough on everyone. Handymen, security guards, you name it. One top security firm even dropped her because Ellen couldn't stand the way their guards walked. A former employee said Ellen loved to belittle people, shouting and saying stuff like, "I'm gonna torture you, and you're just gonna sit there because you're getting paid." And get this, apparently even Ellen's dogs weren't fans of her. They'd go nuts when her wife, Portia, came home but barely budged for Ellen. BuzzFeed News even dropped a report with claims from 10 former employees saying the Ellen Show was a toxic workplace. They talked about being fired for taking medical leave or attending family funerals, and how Ellen not only ignored but encouraged mistreatment and racism among staff. It really shows how someone can tarnish their legacy by how they treat others. Tony Okungbowa, who was the DJ on The Ellen Show and is also an actor, opened up on Instagram about feeling the toxic vibes at the show. What's wild is how all of Ellen's celebrity buddies pretty much zipped their lips about it. And guess what? We're seeing the same deal with Diddy now. All those celebs who used to show off their tight bond with Diddy and were dying to get invites to his epic parties are suddenly MIA. And isn't it a bit ironic? Both Ellen and Diddy are always preaching about kindness and love, Ellen's always talking about her be kind to everyone mantra. Doesn't that seem a bit like the whole love act Diddy's been selling for the last few years? Now, there's another similarity people are talking about between Diddy and Ellen, and it's how they reportedly treat their romantic partners. By now, many have heard about the serious allegations Cassie made against Diddy in her lawsuit, claiming he was physically abusive and did some really messed up stuff. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just Cassie. Insiders have spilled that Diddy's been this way with all the women he's dated. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said that Diddy was violent with his baby mama Misa Hilton too. It got so bad once that she had to hide under a car to escape his wrath. Kim Porter, who was also involved with Diddy, went through similar horrors. Former artists from Diddy's label and other insiders claim that Diddy once broke Kim's nose, and when she left him, he didn't just let her go. He had her followed and even wiretapped her phone. And there you have it, folks. We've peeled back the curtain on some of the not-so-glamorous parts of celebrity life, diving into the allegations and stories surrounding both Ellen and Diddy. It's always intriguing to see the contrast between public personas and private actions, especially with those who live by mantras of kindness and love. But what do you think? Do these stories change how you see these celebrities? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're curious to hear your take on all this drama.